Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Jeannie Godula. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Just days before the Mexican president is guest of honor for Bastille Day here in France, our correspondents take a closer look at Mexico's use of torture. More fallout for Donald Trump. The business mogul turned presidential candidate has been dumped by even more business partners after his incendiary comments calling Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals. And a blow for U.S. comedian Bill Cosby as a court releases previously concealed documents where he admits to drugging at least one woman before having sex with her. Next week, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto will be the guest of honor here in France for the July 14th Bastille Day celebrations. But in the meantime, rights activists back home in Mexico are sounding alarm bells about torture. Our investigative reporters, Laurence Cuvillier and Mathieu Comin, found out more. And please be warned, some of these images may be difficult to watch.
You might know these images. December 9th, 2005, Florence Cassés and her boyfriend, Israel Vallarta, are taken down in a staged arrest for television. Israel had been tortured for hours into giving a false confession for the cameras.
¿Quiénes son las personas que tienes aquí secuestradas?
No conozco.
¿Hay un menor de edad?
Sí.
¿Dónde lo secuestraron? ¿Te duele algo?
Sí, sí.
¿Te lastimaste ahorita en la...?
Usted me pegó. Perdón.
¿Quién le duele?
Nada, señor.
¿Quién le pegó?
Nadie, señor.
Torture on live TV. The authorities accepted it, and his statement was considered valid. Mexico's Human Rights Commission received 7,000 claims of torture from 2010 to 2013. That's not counting incidents of torture which have gone unreported for fear of reprisals. On March 9th, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Juan Mendez, said that torture is widespread in Mexico. The Mexican government family denies this and said the UN's report was unprofessional. But in this recent video, 3 men in police uniforms asphyxiate the man who's tied up. Multiple sources have revealed that the scene was filmed in the police offices of Tlaxcala in the east of Mexico. We met with a former policeman from that town who confirmed this for us. But according to him, the police are not properly trained in the specific torture techniques used in that region.
Look, one of the policemen is trying to hold him down, but he can't. The man is writhing because he's really being suffocated. They're doing it wrong. Here in the state of Tlaxcala, we have a different approach. We don't tie someone up like that. We wrap bandages on his head and feet, then we put them on a mattress and pour water on their face. That's the most practical method to avoid leaving marks.
From 2005 to 2013, there were just 7 cases brought against state officials for carrying out torture nationwide.
It's part of police work everywhere here. If we don't use torture, we wouldn't get anywhere. Because we don't have the tools the US has, like fingerprints, fiber optics, formal investigations. We can't do any of that. So in Mexico, we catch someone, we torture them. They give a confession, and then we move on.
During the dirty war of the 70s, hundreds of left-wing guerrillas disappeared at the hands of the police and army. No sentences were ever given to those who carried out torture in Mexican prisons.
There was one called Estrella, another called Guerra. They kept working normally in the police force after that.
Jose Luis was hung from his arm for hours and had to have it amputated. He's never had justice. Historian Ilich Escamilla has studied this dark chapter in the country's history and says it continues to plague Mexican society.
A tortured body is a form of propaganda. At the end of the day, if we see policemen carrying out torture, that's also a message. They can give themselves the luxury of being seen because there's so much impunity. That doesn't happen by accident. It's a method of terror.
Ese mensaje no es casual. A final de cuentas es una metodología del miedo.
Despite being the 13th largest economy, Mexico's track record keeps it firmly on the blacklist of international human rights watchdogs, a fact that tarnishes the country's image and aspirations of modernity.
Next now to the United States, where the fallout from comments made about Mexicans by Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump continues. In his campaign kickoff last month, the real estate mogul slammed some Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals, criticism he has so far refused to take back. Well, that has pushed several business partners to cut off relations with Trump. And as Belle Lupton reports now, their ranks are growing.
In this Mexican workshop, the artisans are used to seeing their work smashed to smithereens. But with their latest piñata, it's personal.
Because we're at the border, most of the people here have Mexican roots but live on the other side in the US. And yes, they suffer from a type of discrimination and a lack of rights. So when this man, Donald Trump, talks about them like this publicly, he promotes discrimination, and that's serious for us.
It all started last month when media and real estate mogul Donald Trump announced he was running for president. Opening his campaign, he engaged in a bit of Latino bashing.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Mexico responded with an announcement that it won't be sending a participant to this year's Miss Universe, which is part owned by Trump.
Trump is a politician who has no concept of reality. He doesn't understand the contest he's participating in, which doesn't bode well. Other candidates seem to have a view that's closer to ours, that the benefits of immigration have the same value for the country that receives them.
Mexico's response has had a domino effect on Trump's business activities across the board. First, Spanish-language Univision dropped Miss USA from its broadcast schedule, a $13.5 million contract. Under pressure from a petition with 200,000 signatures, NBC then put an end to Trump's Celebrity Apprentice. Larry King's Aura TV and sports network ESPN were the next to fall, putting a stop to programmes in the pipeline tainted by Trump. And it's not just his TV projects that have suffered. US department store Macy's and NASCAR say they too are done with Trump. And even New York City is reviewing its contracts with the presidential hopeful. The spat may have hit Trump's business, but it's given him a leg up in the polls. He's currently second in the Republican race, beaten only by Jeb Bush. For some, though, this won't last.
Every candidate, when they've done something sort of very attention-getting, gets a bump in the polls. Donald Trump's doing that right now. We saw this 4 years ago. We've been seeing this all year. But in a few weeks, his bump in the polls, he'll start declining, and it'll be off to our next candidate.
Until then, though, any publicity is good publicity.
Next, you may not associate the east coast of the United States with sharks, but a spike in recent attacks and close calls there might change your mind. There were 23 shark attacks last month around the U.S., with over a third in North Carolina. Alexander Okot has more now on this worrying trend.
Oh my goodness. This canoeist with a fishing rod nearly had the tables turned on him. He narrowly avoids being gobbled up after a shark on the end of his line tips him over. Fortunately, he was able to swim to safety. Sharks have been becoming an increasingly common feature around North Carolina and have sometimes ventured very close to shore.
Saw about a 5-foot sand shark, and it was within 8 feet of me.
They're around us more, closer and moving around.
They're so close that tourists sometimes even pull them from the water. Sharks usually measure around 1 or 2 meters. Since the middle of May, a heat wave has struck the east coast of the United States, creating favorable conditions for the sea predators. This has had the immediate effect of multiplying the attacks. The most recent case saw this 68-year-old man manage to escape, despite receiving bites to his extremities. Recently, 2 teenagers have lost their arms.
And then it just kind of hit my arm, and it was, that was the first I saw it, was when it was biting up my left arm.
Surprisingly, they do not attack people further out to sea like these windsurfers. This team of scientists have begun to realize the magnitude of the problem. 15 sharks were spotted less than 50 meters from the beach.
Something strange is going on because the trend is normally 0 or 1 attack in that area.
Experts say sharks are being brought in due to a rise in sea temperatures. There's even evidence that sharks are reproducing here.
There have been new revelations now in the sexual assault case against Bill Cosby. Court documents unsealed this week show that 10 years ago, the comedian testified to giving at least one woman quaaludes before sex. That reignited the furor that erupted last year when dozens of women came forward to accuse Cosby of drugging and raping them over the past 40 years.
This is the document Bill Cosby and his lawyers didn't want you to see. It's a testimony from 2005. In it, the American TV star states under oath that in 1976 he drugged at least one woman in order to have sex with her. This testimony disappeared after the actor settled the woman's accusations without going to trial. Since then, almost 30 women have accused Cosby of raping them. That was enough for one Pennsylvania court judge to declassify the document. The victims' lawyers say this could pave the way for more cases against Cosby.
A big moment for them because it verifies their complaints in the sense that they said that they were drugged and then had sex forced upon them by Bill Cosby. This provides some linkage of drugs and sex. And so it's a big step forward.
Can I ask you,
but is this really such a breakthrough? In December, LA prosecutors refused to pursue a rape claim dating back to 1974 because the limitation period had elapsed. It now seems unlikely that the US will be able to bring Bill Cosby to justice. That hasn't stopped the allegations from harming his image, though. America's darling in the long-running Cosby Show now has venues cancelling on him in his comedy tour. And NBC, which used to broadcast the sitcom, has pulled the plug on a series that would have relaunched his career.
Well, that's all the time we have for this Inside the Americas. We'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.